from Gravel Bike California, back in Santa Cruz, ready to throw down our first Monday Mozy with Santa Cruz Graveleers. Now, I love hosting these rides out of town, bringing everyone together, but they don't exist in a vacuum because the travel, sometimes you have to justify it by other means. Now, the gravel community is better connected than Kevin Bacon, as Matthew and I have been on a couple of Thank Gravel's Friday rides, and the opportunity to intertwine together in a place like Wilder Ranch State Park. So, surf's up! Let's roll! Do I plan my vacations around rides, or vice versa? We'll never know. But on our trip, I got a couple of good rides in, and some sandal shorties as well. Staying just east of Santa Cruz in Capitola, that's another quaint beach town numbering 10,000, with bikes being your best shot getting around, filled with golden sunsets worth the climb above, sharing the rays with a number of vintage Victorians, and making sure to make a trip to Gale's. That's a staple for meals, pastries, and whatever you can get your hands on. As on the morning of our send-it, I did a 3-mile ride to Seacliff, stopping off at the Monty family bike park that was smooth enough to film with just one hand, with my goal of revisiting the remains of the SS Palo Alto, viewing now without the pier since I visited 2 years ago. That was an interesting nugget from our Aptos Gravel guide led by Andy. And being this close, I wanted another shot at the descent starting through Nizine Marks. So instead of doing the same loop, I thought it was saving distance going up Soquel San Jose Road, falling for the optics, but glad to try a new route. Even though temps were in the 50s, I left early to beat the heat up on the ridge, heading north to the heart of Soquel, rolling by the elementary school that's been on site since the 1890s and the cemetery founded decades before. As the rural got more ruraler, tempted to peek in for some last-minute commerce, with Soquel San Jose Road becoming a shared experience for the duration. Following along the hear but don't see Soquel Creek, that after my second crossing put me into climbing mode, starting a 6-mile ascent to the next turnoff, having generally a gentle grade being the old connection to San Jose, with an overall friendly 4% average, though there were a few spots where it does pitch up, while near the top both the trees and clouds scale back, maybe making some of the residential more obvious. But I was surprised to still be sporting a jacket, making a right bend onto Highland Way, with the signage not affecting my bike passage, back to a healthy density of tree coverage, enjoying the golden contrast from the morning hours. And though there were the occasional home to start, this loop became my favorite route as everything scaled away. Not getting views like these from the ascent from Corralitos, hard to fathom these two loops would connect. Dipping back into this wooded wonderland, with the only domiciles of the camping variety, surprised to reunite with the headwaters of Soquel Creek, as the road above suggested a switchback, with the turn being elegant enough I wish I had some riders to film. Soon followed up for the turn converging my two routes, though I can claim to some overlooking on my part.
Now I remember the climbing.
I haven't made friends with anyone who likes turning into more climbing, and I definitely wasn't going to explore to look for more, causing me to finally shed my top layer, with a modest 700 feet of climbing left the next 2.5 miles. That's more about confronting the conditions when they pop up, balancing a few rocky pockets while trying to balance. And while there are more options for hiking and biking, it's clear you should take a moment at the peak, as some days are better than others, looking over Monterey Bay, reaching the confluence of trails, reaffirming I was on point for one of my favorite downhills, launching 11 miles of dirt descending, with the first 2/3 sloped like a ski run. The bottom part of this descent completes this experience with the pitch backing off to get a better look. Impressed with the height, even though the first growth was cut down a century ago, making now a few crossing of Aptos Creek that I unknowingly followed a good part of the way, exiting out to a more developed Aptos since I last left it, hightailing it back for the last 4 miles, rolling into Capitola still early enough with plenty of time to do some non-cycling things. Of course, the mystery spot is a must-do, but make reservations as it's a big value at these prices, not to mention all the free stickers they hand out, challenging the norms of science for every level of physicists, where I had trouble understanding the gravity of my situation. Also high in our list for travel was the Roaring Camp Railroad in Felton that was built for tourism in 1963, though using locomotives over a century old, as this was the first time back with my parents since being a child, while also a first for GBC's official canine, getting to take in the majesty of these preserved redwoods, giving plenty of reason to look in other directions than normal. Though this excursion went longer than planned, making me hightail it to my featured ride, showing up at Humboldt Brewery for our Monday Mozy with the Santa Cruz Graveleers, with the bike racks overflowing, and Anna showing off her paint on her new Serrata, where the beauty is in the details. Head SC Graveleer Matthew got the stoke going, although gesturing throughout this ride could be a problem because there are some spots for gripping on this short but playful route. Only in practice will you know you can pack in this much fun in 16 miles, with the first section being the highly scenic route around Wilder Ranch, then climbing in and out of landscapes up Engelsman to the Twin Gates, then blasting through the redwoods and back through UC Santa Cruz. We were pumped, even starting out in the industrial, taking a couple of minutes to make it out to the Wilder Ranch bike path, where if you couldn't wait to go off-roading, there were plenty of opportunities if you looked for them. Our main attraction on the first leg was riding out to the cliffs, that everyone was eager to get into position, although on this 2.5 mile loop, you should probably take your time, as who would want to rush through this? There's a fair amount of coastline you can ride by that extends far west past today's route, but these cliffs are some of the kindest distractions, even more so when they are out of reach. We tied off this clockwise loop, rolling into the historical core of Wilder Ranch, following the rules like upright citizens walking through these 19th century buildings. We made our way under Highway 1, where the ranch and more historical buildings continue, veering our way onto the western portion of the Engelsman Loop. That is the choice if you want single track, where you're climbing but keeping a good tempo, remembering that there's mountain bikers to contend with too. There's a fair bit of weaving in and out of the shade, but it's absolutely blissful when it pops out into open space, not having the same problem dodging turkeys as my last time out. As the trail returns back into the trees, that seems like a very curious choice by the planning committee, but glad they had a sense of humor, making sure not to overlook this opportunity with these golden hills, a contrast to Monterey Bay, taking full advantage as the sun lowers. It was a given that the benches would be a spot for a regroup, as the last chance for this expansive view, needing to get on the move again, where it's hard to conceive you weren't even halfway done with the climb, as the long meadow trail is out to prove a point that its pitch is consistently inconsistent, although firmly in the double digits, and you may not be aware, even when it tapers off, why Matthew leads his full moon send with the Graveleers in the opposite direction to catch these views head on. We started getting into the big trees towards the top, but not quite of the redwood variety yet, though things would change after crossing Twin Gates, entering the northwest portion of UC Santa Cruz, ready to launch onto the spine that is Chinkapin Road, with a number of paralleling side options that might be hard to catch if you're as green as me, but I made sure to follow Matthew's wheel because I wasn't going to veer off on my own, committed to throttling at these speeds, happy when the opportunity arose, wanting more. I knew people would realize that the next recollect would be required, as stopping in front of the barrels is always a must, and a great place to timestamp our ride portrait since it gets painted over so often. Matthew was ready to lead us out, as the second half of Chinkapin I was most looking up to, remembering last time having so much fun. We did it twice, but with a group of this size, I'm sure we exceeded that total sum. We exited into the dorms without co-eds in the way for summer break, making the descent through campus playful, not just with speeds, but more so with the antics, whether it be by fixie surfing or a combination of aero positions with Superman. The shift back to open space felt like a big inhale of fresh oxygen, catching the rays during this fine golden hour, all while looking down like we were on top of the bay again. The southern exit out of UC Santa Cruz is noteworthy, passing the late 19th century Cowell Limes Work Historical District, leaving through some car-friendly width streets before wiggling our way back through the residential, making our return to Humble Sea Brewing with plenty of space to accommodate, as gravel cyclists have the socializing part down, and the pop-up wood fire pizza looks so yummy. I hope I deserve to be rewarded for one of the best tasting pies I've had in a while. And with my normal outro lost somewhere in the ether, the large point, shorter can be better in group rides, especially when you can pack so much into a short distance. So thanks to Matthew's Santa Cruz Graveleers for making this happen, and all our GBC porters making these trips possible, so we can bring you more from the state of dirt.